Hey, it's him, and today we have, well, we need to talk about shiny happy people, but that's for another video, although it feels timely now that Pat Robertson has died. And I have a long history of growing up under the umbrella of the 700 Club, but I'm not quite ready to talk about that yet. Let me know in the comments if that's something you are wanting to discuss. For now, we're going to talk about the book that I just finished, which is We Ride Upon Sticks by Quan. Yeah. So I'm not quite sure what made me pick up We Ride Upon Sticks. I had definitely heard of it or about it. I think probably from Mara on books like Whoa. That's the one place I can remember seeing it, but I'm sure I've actually seen it a couple other places as well because I feel like it was kind of around. The book was written in or published in 2020, I think, so it's a few years old now. But I saw it on display at my library and I recognized the title and remembered something about the book being about a girl's like sports team making a deal with the devil or something, and grabbed it and picked it up to read. So if you haven't heard of this book, let me give you a rundown loosely of what it's about. It's set in 1989, the summer and fall of 89 in Danvers, Massachusetts. So I lived in Boston for 6 years, and then north of Boston for another 6 years. So the setting for me was like, I felt ties to it. If you don't have that familiarity with Danvers and Salem and the North Shore in general of Massachusetts, you may not feel as strongly about that part of the book, but I digress. This group of field hockey, this field hockey team from Danvers, the high school, it's the girls' team, while sucking basically at summer camp for field hockey summer camp. I don't know. Do they have that? I guess that's a thing. Can you tell I'm not a sports kid? As I wear my Ted Lasso shirt, but you know. They're sick of being losers. They've been losers, for years. And so they sign their names in a notebook with Emilio Estevez on the cover. Kind of a pact with darkness in order to become winners, and then they go on a winning streak. The book then kind of looks at each teammate. There are 12 of them. You get you get a slice of life from each teammate, and their background and things like that. And the things that they do as a group to attempt to continue the winning streak, up to and including discussing the possibility of human sacrifice. I won't give anything away here, but yeah, it's an interesting premise and it's kind of fun. Like I said, it's set in 1989, so it's got a little bit of the Stranger Things vibe, I guess, if you harken back to the 80s and have any kind of ties to that. And again, ties to the North Shore of Boston area. You will find things that you recognize and, a little bit of that nostalgia factor. However, this book also it's very strange. So it's definitely more of a literary bent, upmarket, as we would say in the industry. Where, we're talking about these girls, coming into womanhood, their relationships with guys and how they feel about sex. And there's one male teammate who's still trying to figure out like who he is and how he feels about girls and boys and, you know, things like that. And like the prose is very dense. This book took me a long time to read, not because it's, I don't want to say it's boring, although some people probably would actually find it boring, but just because it's a lot to mine through. Like every sentence is kind of weighty. There's no fluff here, really. And also the narration is a little bit gimmicky. It's told in third person? No. First person plural. I'm like, it basically, it uses we as if the narrator were a member of the team. However, this narrator is never named, is never interacted with, you know, and is omniscient. So can tell you what other people were thinking and feeling and doing without necessarily having been there at the time. It's almost, you know, it's a strange choice. I mean, you know, obviously it's kind of a literary thing. And for me, it was a little bit distracting because I'm like, who is this person? Like this we, like, is this like the team spirit literally, like, you know, involved in every bit? But yeah, it was, I gave it 3 stars. I gave it 3 stars because it was interesting to me. It had, you know, it was well written if you like that kind of thing. I feel like this is a book that people are either going to really like or really not. Although here I am saying I was somewhere in the middle. There were things I really liked about it. It's definitely not for everyone, because not a lot happens. It's more, again, character focused. There are no like major events really. There were very few. It's not fast paced. It's not like super exciting. Each chapter is dedicated to a game in the season, and you know, whether or not they win it and what they do to try and ensure that they will win it, and you know, each team member's like actions and attempts to like do their best to continue their dark pact, because the idea is that the team has decided that in order to continue appeasing Emilio, as it were, they have to continue kind of doing bad things or behaving badly, or you know, so it's like, how far do you go, and like how bad can you be and still live with yourself, I guess. Yeah, it was good. I liked it. I don't know. I mean, I'll probably forget a lot of it pretty quickly. The names of characters. I mean, there are 12 team members. It's a lot. And then they're family members, and you know, and I might remember 1 or 2 things that happen in this book, but I will never remember like this book. It's not going to lodge in my brain super strongly. It'll be just kind of one of these weird books. Oh yeah, I read that. That was kind of a weird book. I remember this one thing that happened in the book, or you know, whatever. But yeah, and then it ends with a kind of epilogue. The last chapter, you know, goes forward to 2019, and they're all grown, and there's kind of a reunion type thing. And if that bit feels, I don't know, I can't decide if it's unnecessary or like it's nice to see where everyone ends up, but at the same time, I don't, it feels a little too pat, maybe a little too, you know, I don't know. It's all pretty strange. Anyway, like I said, 3 stars from me. It was between 2.5 and 3. I went ahead and gave it 3. It's not, like I say, for everyone. It's definitely definitely an odd duck. And maybe that's the point. I don't know a lot about this author. I think they have 2 or 3 books out now. Would I read more by Quan Barry? Maybe. I wouldn't necessarily go hunting for it, but if it sounded interesting, I'd pick it up and give it a go. You have to really be in the mood for something that you're kind of going to be entrenched in. It's maybe not a summer read because it's not one of these fast-paced beach type books. I don't know. It's slower than that, or requires more work than that, I would say, from the reader. So if you're looking for a book that you don't have to put some effort into, I would not pick this one up. I would pick up something else. In the meantime, I have since picked up the Heaven Official's Blessing. I've only read the prologue so far, but I needed something that was just a very, very big change from what I just read. By the way, even though We Ride Upon Sticks is about teens, I wouldn't say it's YA. I don't think young adult readers would actually find it very interesting. I think they might identify with a lot of the issues, although I think issues in the 80s and now there are some definite differences in, like, well, it kind of depends on where you are, but in the acceptance of homosexuality and things like that. But again, probably in a lot of places that's still an issue. I'm fortunate to be in California, and it's a little more liberal here. But yeah, like, some people are like, is this YA? Is it adult? I'd say it's probably for adult readers. People my age who, well, so in the 80s I was in elementary school, so this was a little bit past my understanding of high school in the 80s, but I do remember the 80s, and so there's that. If you don't remember the 80s, We Ride Upon Sticks, some of that, like, nostalgia stuff is gonna be, wasted on you, I would say, unless you have, like, a super interest in what life was like back then, or I don't know. Like I said, if you're, like, into Stranger Things and looking for something in that setting. But this book is not super witchy, like, spooky. I thought it was going to be a little spookier. I thought they were going to pull in the Salem witch trials a little bit more. It's touched upon. We get little snippets of the history. One of the characters is a descendant from, the original Salem village, people or whatever. But yeah, this is not a particularly spooky book. I thought it was going to be more, like, ambiguous about whether or not the Emilio thing was real, but then by the end they had, well, I won't tell you, but they came to a definitive conclusion about what had happened there. And so like I said, I needed something super different from this, so I picked up Heaven Official's Blessing, which is translated from Chinese, I think, so it's gonna go in my, like, translation square on my bingo board. And I've read the prologue, and it's definitely faster paced and so far more intriguing. I think it's the first in a series, though, so we'll have to see if I like it enough to read more than the first book. But yeah, that's where I'm at. That was We Ride Upon Sticks by Quan Barry. I get to go to my book club tonight and tell them all about it too. Unless they're watching this now. Hi, ladies. Sometimes they do, so shout out to my book club. Yeah. So, and I've got a huge stack of books to get through, and hopefully over the summer, but I'm writing again now, so I'm not reading as much. And when you read a book like We Ride Upon Sticks, which is kind of a slow, like, I don't want to say it was a trudge, but it was work. I mean, I had to really think, do I want to sit down and read right now, because it's going to be kind of a chore. Like, not in a bad way, but, like, it's going to take, it's not something I can just do flippantly when it's a book like this. So, where was I going with that thought? Anyway, well, I was going to say, when it's a book like that, it takes longer, you read less because you're reading in smaller chunks because it's a lot to digest. It's like eating a heavy meal, right? There are popcorn books, and then there are books that are like meaty, and this is a meaty book. And I'm still on track with my reading goals. I've read 18 books this year. The goal is 40, so I need to be to 20 by the end of the month. I think I can do that. Yeah. So that's it. I'll stop rambling. And like I said, we'll talk about Shiny Happy People, and maybe we'll discuss my history growing up. Fundy adjacent, I will say. Not super fundy, but yeah. But that's for another time. Let me know if that's something you want to discuss too, and I will talk to you when I talk to you. Until then, take care.